Dr. Tuning, I know you're so sad. This is your last video from me. I know you're probably so upset. This is my last annotated bibliography of graduate school, and it is on teaming and project-based learning. The article is Teaming, CCSS, and Project-Based Learning. I think it means Common Core State Standards. This is the article. It is from AMLE. I have put the citation, the works cited, at the link on the comments of the YouTube page. Let's dive right in. So this article is about a team of teachers. Their team is called Swift House for the bird, the chimney swift bird. They are in Vermont at Williston Central School. They deal with 105th through 8th graders in their project-based learning middle school. What's interesting about this article and about this school really is that everything is based on project-based learning and it's interdisciplinary, which is fascinating. So one of their key points, their motto is actually fly forever. It signifies their love for learning as a lifelong adventure. They have this whole thing where the teachers are educated in, hold on, there's a quote. I have a quote. It says, "We are all certified," this quote, "we are all certified in multiple areas, parentheses, some of us all four, parentheses, because we believe that learning crosses disciplines, and it's only in schools that the lanes are so defined." And so it's really interesting is that their projects for project-based learning is interdisciplinary almost every time. And they are constantly moving and being flexible, but the teachers, which this is really cool to me, so the teachers are, like it just said, most of them are certified in at least one other area. So I could be English and social studies or English and math. And it's fascinating to me because that means that when they're doing this interdisciplinary thing, I might be the ELA teacher, but I can help them with social studies and I understand how to connect it with social studies or science or math or all four. I think that's totally stellar. But they do okay. I'm getting too excited. So this school allows for a multi-age team. And then obviously all the teachers are certified in all these different things. And so each team is multi-level and they go to their own core classes, but then they come back together at the end of the day. They even provide this little timetable, I know it's backwards, of their schedule, because their schedules, it's kind of confusing when you first read it, because it's okay, they have morning meetings and everything. I'll read you just a normal Monday. So they have Swift House opens at 7:30, at 8:10 there's morning meeting, at 8:30 there's language arts, at 9:30 there's math. At 10:30, it's 6th through 8th grade students have world language and related arts. 5th graders and students not in world languages have study hall and math skills. And then at 11:10, it's all students they all go to world language or related arts. Off of house, that's what it is. And then at 11:50, that's their core classes. And so the core classes shift and move. So they'll either take science or math, or no, science or social studies, and they switch back and forth. And then on Wednesdays, they just do, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they just do one, and then they switch. And then it goes into life studies, silent reading, lunch recess, and then the end of the day, the last 2 hours, from hour and a half, 2:55 to 4:30, they have all this stuff for them to work together on their projects. And so you might be in your math and English class with just 5th grade or just 6th grade or just 7th grade or just 8th grade. But then when you come together for your team meeting or your related arts or whatever you're coming in for, I think it's called life studies was what they call their project class. You're now with 5th through 8th graders. So you might be a 7th grader and your project team is all these different students of all these different ages and different classes. And given it's only 100 people, so it's easy to do because it's kind of 25, 25, 25, 25. But so you're all mixed in there, which is so cool and so interdisciplinary, and it's so age leveled, which is fascinating. But they get together and then they have different projects that are interdisciplinary, which I think is just fascinating that they have this many things. But it's cool because the whole school works together as a team. The whole school's in on it, and it's multi-level. So just because you have you could have an honors kid and a CP kid in the same project team working on the same project, even though they're academically at different levels, even in the same grade or different grades, which I think is really good for the development of students because being stuck with someone who's just like you all the time doesn't really broaden your mind very much. And something else that they note is that it's all about flexibility, and so they even say in the beginning it says, just as we expect flexibility, this is a quote, just as we expect flexibility in our students, We have treated these initiatives as a challenge to adapt within the context of a learner-centered PBL and standards-based environment. So they realize that flexibility is a way of life and that it's something that you have to do in the world. And so, you're expecting your students to be flexible. If you needed to change a lesson or something, then you have to be able to be flexible as well and to be able to change and adapt. And so I think that's really cool that they might do one project over and over and over again and realize, okay, we need to move on. We need to find something new. And so they're willing to grow and adapt and change with each new group of students that they need to, if they need to. And so they say, they might love one idea, but it might be an idea that's a little outdated, or like this new group of students might not be into, or there's something even better. If they had a whole project about the radio, well, now it's like the iPad or Spotify or something, or the iPod or Spotify. Like, you've got to keep moving up with the times. If you did something on like vinyl, your whole project was on, I'm just making something up, on vinyl, and now they're listening to the iPod, you've missed some steps. And so they try to keep up with what's going on in like the world and what's important and prevalent in these students' time, which I think is really, really fascinating. It's got to be challenging, though, to have 5th through 8th graders and find something that's relevant to all of them, but I think still it's fascinating. They also work really hard to make sure that everything is flexible, including working with each other. So they work a lot together. They have a whole section on flexible planning together, and how they all come together across the grade levels. And they talk about, this is what we're learning and we're struggling here, so we're going to have to pull back. And they say, okay, well, we're actually really going pretty fast. Here's a new idea. So it says they pitch their ideas for new learning experiences. The innovation and creativity are limitless when we all come together. And I think that's really interesting. They did say that their team-based units are planned differently, though. Sometimes it's just 2 people who are working together in a team. Sometimes it's the whole school's on it. So it just depends on what the actual project is that they're doing. And then that kind of determines how they're going to plan for it. Something interesting that they do for assessment during their different projects, is it's called standards assessment. It's something that one of their old team members, it says a former Swift teacher, created for reporting. So what they do is they make a class group, so they're their team for that quarter, semester, week, whatever, and they make that group in their, what we would call Canvas or Moodle. They make the class, and then they assign the students the standard that they have to meet, and then there's a rubric that goes along with it. So the standards can be any form in the content area or the collaborative content area. And then they create an integrated report. So if my team, my project-based learning team, 5th through 8th graders, say there's 10 of us in our team, each of us is assigned our own grade level standard that our project should be accomplishing for each class. So I would have 4 standards: math, science, social studies, and English. 4 standards at the 8th grade level that I have to accomplish in my project. And so it's really cool because then each teacher gets to go in and look and see oh, look, LEB, she did a really good job completing these 3. She really struggled in the ELA. Let's look at her other projects, or let's look at her ELA grade. Oh yeah, I can see where she's having trouble writing regardless. And I think that's really interesting that they make it to where I, as the student, know what I'm supposed to be achieving. I think that's important for the student to know what they're supposed to be achieving, directly. And it lets them evolve. If they realize, okay, well, no one's really hitting this one standard, we should probably figure out a way to, tweak our project. Something else that's really important for the Swift House team is that they work together with the students. So, the team, right? So there's grade level teams, and then there's, intergrade level teams, inter-age teams. And the inter-age teams, they're, constant. So you have the same team that, big team. You might have, a little project in 8th grade, but your overall team stays the same. You just keep adding new 5th graders and losing 8th graders, which I think is really fascinating. You have the same team leader and everything. So that means that you get to work with these fellow students, with these peers, with these younger students, with these older students, with your team teacher, team leader, and form those relationships that are absolutely vital in middle school and for adolescents. So without building relationships with adults, students don't really learn how to form connections and form appropriate relationships and be able to ask for advice. So I think it's really, really interesting that they keep those teams together. Obviously, the little projects, those are for the big projects. The little projects, they still move people around and let people do whatever they want. But or different groups, but I think it's cool that they keep them all there so that, you know, as a fifth grader, you're forming connections with sixth and seventh graders that you're going to keep the whole time, and so you can ask them for advice, and so it kind of funnels into like the advising and the mentorship opportunities that this project-based learning team design kind of hosts, right? So if you have all these students who are constantly learning and growing together, then it provides a space for mentorship and for the advisor to really get to know these kids, and it's not just like 1 year you're gone. Lastly, I think it's really important that their entire energy, I know I've said this a bunch, their like whole energy is to be flexible. And since they are like focused on project-based learning, if they need more time to do something, their schedule is flexible as well. So they have obviously the set one I showed before, the master schedule, but it says, quote, "We need to have the ability to change the schedule to suit the learning," quote. And that's why their blocks are, you know, shorter in time. So it's like you get an hour, but it's broken up inside because they realize that, you know, you're not productive. Learning isn't productive in just 40 minutes, right? So if you're forcing a student to sit there and listen for 40 minutes, they're not going to do that, and especially if they've got other things in their mind. And so they work really hard to be flexible and be active and be collaborative and creative in every single class, even if it's not during the project or for a project or, you know, in your team. It's just, you know, you're in math class and you're working towards a project, but it's one of those days where you're just doing like math, not like project math. It's just learning the math so you can do the project. They try to keep you moving and flexible and positive and collaborative, and it's just overall a fantastic setup. I think it looks like a lot of work. Like you would absolutely have to have like a really cohesive team of teachers and administrators who are behind each other and behind the projects 100%. But I think I love that it gives the students and the teachers a space to find different things that they're interested in and experiment and work together in a group and create relationships. And it just makes learning kind of full circle when you get to learn something and then apply it and then develop from that and create a new idea and then learn from it and then develop it, and then that's my cue. All in all, I think it's a very fascinating setup, project-based learning as like an actual school, not just as something you do like once a year or during an integrated unit or something. I love that this is something that these people have like brought into their school and made their school. So that is it. That is the last video for my graduate degree at Converse. Hope you enjoyed. Again, this is the article Teaming, CCSS, and Project-Based Learning by Juliette Longchamp and Deborah Donnelly. Bye.